let's take a quick look at some of the more advanced features of the Quansheng UV-K5 HT. Hi, and welcome to the Gadget Talk channel, where we do reviews and how-tos on a variety of electronic gadgets that catch my eye. In this video, we're going to take a closer look at some of the advanced features of the Quansheng UV-K5 HAM HT. As always, if you find this video helpful, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the Gadget Talk channel. I really appreciate it. This video is basically part 2 to my review of the UV-K5. I'll link that in the description below and in the end card for this video. This time, we're going to take a look at the menus, CTCSS scan function, the CTCSS and frequency scan function, over-the-air channel copying, channel scanning, airband operation, FM operation, and programming the radio using the CPS or customer programming software. Let's get started. Here's a quick review of the radio's menu system. We're going to start with the menu items. You remember that we access the advanced menu items or the hidden menu items by turning the radio on after pressing the side key 1 and the push to talk. And so here we are. We're on item number 52, so that's the transmit on the 350, and we're just going to walk through these really pretty quick. Again, they work like all the rest of them do. You press menu a second time to confirm what you choose. If you're on the item the first time you press it, and the little caret moves to the right side of the screen, up and down makes the changes menu again. And so we've got that. Then we've got the frequency lock mode. This is where you can choose the area of the world you're in or to unlock various other frequencies. Transmit in the 200 megahertz, transmit in 500, transmit in 350, and so forth. So now we're at the end. So this is now the beginning of the regular menus. And so we'll work through these just real quick as well. So we've got the squelch, the step settings. There are a number of settings to choose from. The transmitter power, receive DCS and receive CTCSS, the transmit DCS and transmit CTCSS. So you can see that the channel that I've got the radio set to right now has got a transmit CTCSS of 162. The shift deviation is set here. If you're going to set your repeater using the menu, you can press the positive or minus, or if it's simplex, to set it to off. The offset amount, again, this is a repeater, so it's a positive 0.6 megahertz. SCR has to do with the encryption, which is not allowed. Busy channel lockout. The memory channel you can set here. It's on channel 3. Power save is the ratio of the time the receiver is listening to when it's asleep to save battery power. Vox. The brightness control here, I've got it off. I think it records a little better here. TDR is transmit dual receive. WX has to do with the crossband receiving, and you can choose the mode, whether you've got the transmitter dual receive on, and if you get a signal on channel B, you can set it to respond on that channel, or you can set a channel to respond on always on A or always on B. So let's continue on here. The beep is the beep during programming, not the Roger beep. Timeout timer. The voice that you want, I've got it set to English. The SC receive is the scan resume mode. And scan resume mode is either time operation, where it lingers on any frequency it senses for a few seconds and then starts scanning again. Carrier operation, which it'll stay on that frequency until the carrier disappears, or SE scan end, and that it'll exit the scan mode when you have a carrier detected. MDF is the display function. So I've got it set to name. Auto lock the keyboard after a number of seconds. You can add channels to scan list 1. You can add channels to scan list 2. Squelch tail elimination, repeater squelch tail elimination. This is pretty cool for a cheap radio. It's got a microphone gain setting. One call has to do with one key calling. It's not something I use. Here you can select the primary scan list. Here you can configure scan list 1 or scan list 2. You do that by adding channels. This is the alarm mode. And then we get into a bunch of menu items that have to do with the DTMF. So we're just going to kind of go through those real quick. And these are things that I don't really use. The next one that we're going to use is the power on message, and I've got it set to message. There are a couple different choices there. This is the Roger beep. This radio has a couple of Roger beeps that you can set, just the beep kind of tone or kind of a squelch sound. So that's kind of cool. This menu item reads out the voltage of the battery. AM allows the AM function. It's either off or on, and it only applies in the airband, and I have not found that to really make a difference. So I've got it off, but my airband still works fine. NOAA scanning is on, so the NOAA channels will search until it finds one. We can delete channels, reset, and then we're back to where we started. So those are the menu items here on the Quansheng UV-K5. The K5 allows you to scan for unknown CTCSS or DCS code if another radio is nearby transmitting. This will allow you to find the tone frequency, set it on your radio, and be able to communicate with the other party. This is handy if either you or they have set the wrong code and you're unable to communicate. So this next menu function has to do with scanning to find a CTCSS or DCS code. And to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to press the function key and then scan. We'll key a radio. You can see that it says scan complete and 67.0, which was the code that I had set in the other radio. The CTCSS and frequency scan function adds finding the transmitter's frequency to the scan. In this mode, you press the function key and then the 4 key to enter the scan mode. If it finds a strong signal, it will capture the frequency and the CTCSS if it's present. I found that in the VHF band, the receiver finds the first harmonic, not the primary frequency. In the 70 centimeter band, it works as advertised. This function still needs a little work. The over-the-air channel copying works if you have 2 K5s. I don't, so wasn't able to try it. To get started, you need to turn off the radio, press and hold the PTT while pressing side key 2, and then turn on the radio. The default frequency is outside the US ham band, so set an appropriate frequency in both radios. Press the exit key on the receiving radio and press the menu key on the transmitting radio. The radios will count up as the channels are transferred. You can scan through your scan list by making a long press on the scan key or one of the side keys if you programmed one of them for scanning. The radio will scan whichever scan list you have selected. You can change scan list by pressing menu 31 and selecting the other list. Let's take a quick look at airband operations. You can find the frequencies used at your local airport online. Search using the airport's name. When you select a frequency between 108 and 136 megahertz, the radio changes to AM mode to receive the transmissions. The menu item for setting AM receive doesn't seem to make any difference. If you're in the airband frequency range, a long press on the scan key will initiate airband scanning. As I mentioned in the initial review for the K5, you enter the FM broadcast mode by pressing the function, then the FM key or the FM side key if you programmed one of those. When in the FM broadcast mode, pressing the function key, then the number 1 key will alternate between FM VFO or channel mode. Pressing function, then the number 2 key in the FM VFO mode, will cause the radio to scan the FM broadcast range and write discovered channels into the FM memory channels. If you don't want to write those into the memory, then scan the FM broadcast range by pressing function key and key number 3. This will enable manual scanning and not write over any stored channels. If you're in FM channel mode, the scan will go through your channels. If you're in FM VFO mode, the scan will go through the entire FM broadcast range. Press the up or down key to resume scanning when the radio stops on a frequency. Let's finish up with a comprehensive look at programming the K5 using the CPS. So let's take a closer look at our CPS for the Quansheng UV-K5. And so as we always do, we want to check with our ports. And so we're going to go into our Windows Device Manager, open ports, check what it recognized our serial cable as, and in this case it's COM3. So we know what that is. We're going to remember that. We're going to go into settings. We're going to go into COM port setting. We're going to verify that we've got COM3, which we do. And since it's already there, we're going to hit cancel. Now this program has a little bit more of the Windows functionality built into it than the typical CPS from manufacturers. And so it's got the usual file with open save, save as, device, read in and read out, settings, COM, password, and language, Windows, cascade or tile, and then a help about. But what it also will enable you to do is to move the window around and scroll and do that kind of thing. So that's kind of cool. So let's work through the various menu availability items that we have. And before we start, let's take what we've got in the radio so we have a starting point. And I've already done some programming here so we have something to look at. So we're going to read in. I've got the radio connected via the K1 connector and of course plugged into a USB port for the computer. So we'll click read. And unlike some of the other CPSs that I've used, this one does not change the setting on the radio. The radio doesn't flash, the screen doesn't change, it just uploads as we've seen right here. Now the upload has been successful, and so let's look and see what we have. First is the base radio, which is just the hardware and the software version. Next we have our function key, which is basically the side keys, and I've set mine to be the flashlight on and off with a short press on the side key 1, go into FM radio mode on and off with a short press on side key 2. A long press on 1 will put the monitor, which breaks the squelch, and we can turn the scan off and on with a long press on side key number 2. Here it says common settings, but these are just the various menus available to you on the radio. And so you can see I've got a timeout timer set for 1 minute. It gives you many opportunities, 1, 3, 5, whatever it is you want. I've got the backlight auto mode on for 5 seconds. You can turn it off if you want to run it off all the time, or you can give it 1 to 5 seconds of brightness and then it'll go off. We've got the squelch tone elimination on, beep on the radio on. That's not the Roger beep. We've got the scan resume mode, and this is pretty typical for these radios. So I've got the time resume mode set. In this case, I've got time operation set. So if it hits some active channel while scanning, it'll linger there for a few seconds and then it'll go on. Your other choices are continuous, which means if the long as the carrier stays on, it'll scan, or scan elimination, which means that if you hit a channel with a carrier, it'll exit scan mode altogether. I've got the keypad for English. I have my timeout timer reminder to off, NOAA channel auto scan to on, and then here we go with the welcoming info. Sometimes you're going to see that as the screen display, so I can do full screen, welcome info, or voltage, in which case I want the welcome info. And so I've typed in my call sign in logo string 1, and I've left logo string 2 off. I don't have a password I've got mic sensitivity, which is cool on this radio, that you can adjust mic gain, alarm mode set to sight, and then the channel displays I've set to name because I don't remember frequencies all that well. So those are all the things here in the common settings. Now we jump into DTMF settings. These are the DTMF information that you might use if you were using this radio in a commercial way, or if you were an advanced user using DTMF. I'm not one of those. I don't send DTMF codes to other users, and so I've just left this the way it comes out of the box. I can set up some DTMF code contacts. Again, I've not messed with that. Next, I can move into my memory channels, and this is the display you're used to seeing. And so I've got my various memories here, and I'm going to expand that window. Again, it's very handy to have that full Windows functionality here. And so I've done these programming tasks, and so I've programmed some of my favorite repeaters in here, and I have repeaters down here in the 70 centimeter range. So I've got both my 2 meter and my 70 centimeter. Now I've had a little trouble getting my NOAA channels to work here on this radio. The radio shows that it's receiving, but I don't hear any audio. So I have programmed them in here beginning on channel 50, and they work fine. So I'm not sure what's up with that. Now to make changes, you just simply double click and you get this programming window, which allows you to make all of those entries. There's not a receive type because this is a call channel, so I've got it set to none, and so there's no code there, and the same with the send. And then I've got the frequency step set here. I've got busy channel lockout and all this other stuff set. So it works out really quite well. Now, one of the things that I found that was interesting as I programmed here is you can just kind of program randomly, but then you can arrange these, which is a very nice function of this. So, for example, I've got a UHF repeater in Payson, Arizona set here, and if I wanted to move it up the list, I could click the Move Up button, and you can see now it's in channel 25 instead of 27. And likewise, I could move it down. And so that's a very nice function in the channel memory display here in this CPS. And of course, I could click and delete if I wanted to, or I could highlight one and press edit if I wanted that same display window to come open. So that's what I've got here in my channel modes. In my VFO channels, it's just kind of a misnomer, you know, to have channels in VFO, but I've got several things here. And one of the things I discovered is that these icons aren't active. And so what you see is what you got. And so if you're in that mode, it gives you the starting place if you're working your way through the band selection command on the faceplate of the radio. This is where it's moving through as best as I can tell, because you can make changes to this, but you can't really delete them. Now, scan list is another fun one, and so we've got the 2 scan lists available to us, and that's really handy. As I mentioned in the previous review, having a lot of channels, dividing them into different scan lists is very handy. It would have been nice if they would have had, you know, 5 or 6 scan lists, but 2 is better than none. So in this case, we can identify that, we can edit, and we get all of the programs that we have in our memories available to us in this display. And then if we want them in our scan list, so for example, if I wanted the UHF South Mountain repeater in my scan list, I would just click Add, and now it's a member of my scan list, and it would be scanned if I chose to scan list number 1. If I decided I didn't want it, I could remove it by clicking the double carets that point to the master list. You've probably seen these displays before, but they're very handy, and it's a very nice addition to this CPS. And then here in the FM radio, we have some FM channels here in the Phoenix area that I typed in. And so when I go to the FM mode, if I go to function number 1, I can move up and down these channels in my FM radio. If I go to function number 2 when I'm in FM, then it's going to scan and it's going to overwrite all these, which is not exactly what I wanted to do. Or if I went to, while I'm in FM, go to function number 3, it'll manually scan and it'll allow me to stop on a channel that it picks up while it scans through the full FM. So note to myself and note to you is that if you fill these up with the channels you want, don't use function 2 when you're in FM mode, or they're going to be overwritten, which was an interesting little quirk. Now, the next thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to save. So I can either hit my save button or I can go to File. I'm going to go to Save As. And in this case, I want to make a save. And so today is 2023, April, so it's 04. And the date is 1/9, and I want to do with K5. Now you can see I already have made a save today before I started this recording, so I'm going to use that same moniker for my 2023-04-19 K5, and it saves it as a CXF or a configuration file. So I'm going to hit save. It says it's already exists. Do I want to replace it? Yes, I do. And then now that I have that saved, I'm just going to click Write Out. And it's writing to my radio. Again, nothing's happening on the radio, but you can see the progress bar is moving through here in the CPS. And with the write complete, it says, okay, now my radio did light up, indicating that it rebooted. And so I've completed the use of the CPS. So that's a little bit deeper dive into the Quansheng UV-K5 CPS. In my opinion, these features are one of the reasons that this little HT has the potential to be a significant player in the entry-level HT market. It's easy to use, but has some features not found on even more expensive radios. There are still a couple of little bugs, but overall, these features will soon define what it means to be a full-featured handheld transceiver. If you'd like to review the initial tour of the K5, join me over here where we'll go through the radio basics. As always, if you found this video helpful, please like the video and subscribe to the Gadget Talk channel. Thanks for watching, and 73.